Let's create this expense category column in the expense tracker database. Expense category. Property type will be relation. This is a special and very powerful kind of property that helps to link to Notion databases. We want to link the expense category database with expense category column of expense tracker database, and this database is already created, and that's why we can see this in the drop down list. In fact, you can see all the different databases which are available in this list, including the habit tracker database. But for our purpose, let's select this expense category database, and once you select that, you will see these two options, limit and two-way relation. Keep this as no limit for now, and two-way relation we should select this and then add relation. So now we have successfully linked the expense tracker database to expense category database. So with that expense category column now created, we are ready to proceed with the next steps, which is to create all the required templates for the budget and expense tracking system. But before that, we need the expense head or type, expense category, expense frequency, and most importantly, the budgeted amount with the split of monthly, quarterly, and yearly portions. To save the time, I have already created this Excel based on my own budget and expense tracker system, and we shall use this as an example to create all the templates. The link of this Excel file is in the description. We have covered this concept in the first video, which was about preparation and planning. However, let me quickly recap all these columns. The first column is expense type. So these are some of the expense types that I have taken from my own personal budget and expense tracking system, and we shall use this expense type to create the templates. And as you can see, these are the broad categories of expense head, which is further broken down, and those are used in the yearly budget database. For example, if you look at this transport expense head, this is further broken down into two: car ownership and cab and other transport, which are part of yearly budget database. And the car ownership is further broken down to car loan, fuel, and car insurance and maintenance, and these are part of monthly expense database. Another expense head, bills. So instead of bills, we'll call it utility bills. The utility bills will have single entry in yearly budget database as well as monthly budget database, but it is further broken down into multiple items in expense tracker database, as you can see here, and those are like electricity bill, gas bill, broadband bill, and mobile bill. So that's about the expense head or expense type. We also have this display order for both yearly budget database and monthly budget database, and this is something we'll be using to display the record in particular order. Next, we have the expense frequency, which is a column in monthly budget database, and for each and every expense head or expense type of monthly budget database, we will define the frequency. For example, as you can see, for the monthly expense head of grocery, the expense frequency is monthly, but for health insurance, it is going to be yearly. Then we will have expense head for expense tracker database. It is almost same for most of the expense heads, but we have already covered a specific one like the utility bills, where in expense tracker database we have multiple entries, but for yearly and monthly budget database it's just a single entry. Next, we have this expense category for which we already created a new database, and for all the expense head of expense tracker database we will define this expense category. And we talked about this survival expense category in the preparation and planning video, but other than survival, I have also mentioned couple of other categories like reducible and eliminable, and as you can see, for some of the expense head we can have both survival and reducible. And the next column is the most important column, which is the budgeted amount for all the expense head. And as you can see here, I have used a formula to calculate this value, and these are nothing but the values of these columns. And by looking at these columns, you can understand how the budgeted amount is distributed for all these expense head. For example, the grocery is having the expense category as survival and expense frequency as monthly. So the budgeted amount for the grocery is 5,000 per month and it is mentioned under survival amount. Similarly, for fuel, the expense category is survival and reducible, and the expense frequency is monthly. So the monthly value is distributed between survival portion and reducible portion. Another example is health insurance. So the frequency is yearly and this is survival category, and the annual value of 25,000 is mentioned under survival. Another example is vacation. The expense category is reducible and the frequency is ad hoc. Consider ad hoc similar to monthly, and I will talk a bit more in detail when we will create the template. And as you can see, for vacation the value is 12,000 and it is mentioned under reducible. And one final example is this one, self-development expense head. This is eliminable and this is again ad hoc, and as you can see it is mentioned under eliminable column. The next two columns are self-explanatory. So this is the multiplier and this is again a formula, and how it works is that if the expense frequency is monthly, then the multiplier value is 12. If it is quarterly, then the multiplier is 4, and if it is yearly, it is 1. If it is ad hoc, then the multiplier is 12, which is similar to monthly as I just mentioned. So again, just to give an example, the grocery, the monthly value is 5,000, the multiplier is 12, so the yearly budget value is 60,000. Similarly, health insurance is yearly and this is the yearly value and the multiplier is 1, so the yearly budget is 25,000. And let's have a look into the quarterly one. So this one, daughter's school fees, so this is quarterly and this is again survival. So this value of 15,000 is mentioned under survival, but this is quarterly, so multiplier is going to be 4 and total yearly budget value is going to be 60,000. So I hope you got the idea how this is calculated. So we'll be using this as reference to create the templates for all the databases. Later, if you want to create the budget and expense tracker with your own data, then you can use the Excel as reference and update accordingly based on your data. But for now, let's go to the Notion and start creating the template. So let's create the templates in yearly budget database for all these expense heads. Let's start with fresh items. Click on this down arrow, then new template. The name is fresh items. We shall use this Excel to fill up some of the columns. For fresh items, it is monthly expense and the number of month is going to be 12. Quarter, we can keep it blank. Actual till date is a formula. The display order is 1, as you can see here. Then these are auto populated. Monthly actual is a formula, monthly budget is a formula, monthly budget amount, this is 6,000, so we'll put 6,000 here. Quarterly budget is going to be empty, remaining budget is a formula, till date difference is again formula, year is current year 2026, yearly budget again not applicable, and yearly budget on okay, so this is a mistake that I found while. So actually if we go to yearly budget database, so this is the issue. So we already have a column yearly budget here, and since we created another one with yearly budget, so that's why you can see Notion has created this with the on at the end, but we want this column to be known as yearly budget portion. So we will just rename this edit property to portion. Okay, so again for fresh items, this is going to be empty. Now let me reorder some of these columns. Now let us make it look little better. Add cover. So we want to keep track of the fruits, vegetables, fresh items like that. So let's find something relevant. This one looks fine. Let's add an icon. So fruit. Okay, let's create the template for grocery. Display order is 10. Here is 2026. Again, grocery frequency is monthly and the amount is 5000. Yearly budget is a formula, so we'll skip that for now. So number of months going to be 12. Monthly budget value is 5000. Number of quarter not needed. Quarterly budget not needed. Yearly budget not needed. None of them is needed. So let's add again a relevant cover. Grocery. Let's add an icon. Let's create the insurance one. Display order is 20. Here is 2026. Okay, so it's showing a comma. Let's edit the property and just say number without commas. Okay, so for insurance, as you can see, it is further divided into two. One is monthly and one is yearly. So for yearly budget database, we have to capture both the monthly value and the yearly value. So if I scroll further, the monthly value is 3500 and number of months 12 and yearly value is 25,000. So we'll put that under yearly budget portion. Then we can add a cover, insurance. If you have watched my video on how to create the habit tracker using Notion database, then you already know how to create the Notion templates. And you may be thinking that we created Notion templates for habit tracker database to create the habit records automatically in the database every week. But here in this case, this is a yearly budget database and we need to create the record in this database only once in a year. So instead of creating the templates, we can just create the record in the database itself. And yes, you are absolutely right. We can create the records in the database directly without creating any template. But as I said earlier, if you want to create your own budget and expense tracker, then I'm sure that you want to use this for many more years to come, and template would certainly help to create the records every year, right? I shall add the link of that habit tracking video in the description in case you have not seen that. Let's back to the work. So instead of creating the new template every time, we can also use the existing one and create a copy by clicking on this duplicate. We'll call it medical. Let's change the cover. Display order is 30. This is monthly and the value is 4000. So let's change that to 30. Value is 4000. Yeah, so that's for the medical one. Let me create the rest of the templates. So we have now created all the templates for yearly budget database, as you can see here. That's all the template and expense type that we need for yearly budget database. We shall not create any records in the yearly budget database now. First, we need to complete the template creation for the other two databases. But let's close this video here. Thank you for watching and I shall see you in the next video.